back to what I was talking about earlier about international affairs and world news. Um, Niger has ordered police to expel the French ambassador from their country. So, like I was saying, bigger things are happening behind the scenes. And I'm looking forward to seeing how the world kind of develops because it's kind of weird. Well, it's not weird from a global studies perspective, of what the stuff that I studied in school, to understand why governments and countries, particularly people aligned with the U.S., are standing against something like this because the French have obviously placed this leader in power, and not the leader in power. Sorry, excuse me. Um, Hold on one second. I'm looking at two different things here. Uh,
If it helps, I'll just run through it real quick.
Good.
On July 26, Nigeria's government was overthrown and President Mohamed Bazoum was taken hostage. The Economic Community of West African States issued an ultimatum to the coup leaders, threatening military intervention if deposed Bazoum was not returned to power. This happened again in July 26th of this year, a coup that has happened in Niger, and the fallout has been global.
right,
Whether
and then
we
yeah, the
Mm.
EU is putting sanctions against, obviously the group that established the coup d'état, but they did the same to Russia. So when we look at this is only pushing these countries closer and closer to BRICS, which is what I was getting to earlier. Like the economic status of the world is going to flip and change in the next couple of years, very, very, very quickly. Um, Granted, I believe I saw somewhere that Nigeria wasn't accepted. Their application was denied into BRICS for whatever reason. So I need to look into that. I was going to ask you about that, Michael, if you heard anything. Um,
Yeah, you said that last episode too. Everyone here, check out a really good. The last episode we did was in person. It was fire.
yes,
But
sir.
please, I know Brexit, but you say BRICS. Tell me more about what
Brick,
that is.
BRICS is well, BRICS. Excuse me. Russia, India, China, South Africa, and I'm forgetting the first one. The B is something, and I'm forgetting. But
Um,
it's damn. Why did I do this to myself? I'm gonna look this up because I'm gonna be burning here. For
it's a grouping of world economies of Brazil.
Brazil, there it
Yeah.
is. Damn, Anthony's gonna kill me. um, but yeah, it's basically just the alliance of BRICS is this, what you would call, or what I guess global studies students would have called the secondary developing nations of the world. Second to only the first world nations, which is not obvious but very obvious to the first world nations, which are U.S., Britain, and the EU specifically. So talking about those countries and nations when we're saying first world nations, but we're leaving out the conversation of the developing world nations like China, who we've also been fighting against with Russia half the time for communism and socialism and all these different things. When it comes to protecting democracy and whether or not democracy is whether a good or bad thing, I'm not even here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about the financials and the economics of the situation. What the issue at hand is for the first world nations is that once these nations band together, stop utilizing the US dollar, and start trading in their own currency and building up their own internal national value as a country, they will be able to now, I guess, hold wealth within their own currencies better than they were before, right? By Niger expelling France and getting rid of whatever France control they had, the French francs that they made them use to devalue their own dollars, and taking away their natural resources and all this other stuff and exploiting the materials that they have there, that no longer happening, right, as a result of them expelling these first world nations like France, who are either too weak to maintain their presence in these countries, or they just have lacked the ability to get in touch with the culture and the base of the people there enough to make an impactful influence in the benefit of their own countries. So unlike countries that have been colonized by the British, countries that have been colonized by the French have not done so well in terms of their outlook for the French economy, and the French have suffered as a result. So we're just seeing the further fallout of that, and the realization that these countries who join BRICS will now be able to be in a better financial situation by joining, each other, building trade routes and alliances, and all of these different things that the first world nations did again years ago. But this is the second coming of that, right? We're seeing the development, and they're going to surpass us at this point, like right at some point. I mean, the U.S. is always going to be a big military superpower, but all right, and that's a big but. India just landed another uh,
So,
rocket thing on the moon. It's a rover, I think. I'm not even gonna say the name, but it's the third one. So they landed it. Russia did not land theirs. Russia's crashed their aircraft, spacecraft into the moon. Actually, a week before India put theirs up and landed it. So a lot of people did not understand the significance of that because this is like something that hasn't. The space race is now reignited. So when you look at it, BRICS versus Five Eyes, which is the I guess BRICS version, security version of what BRICS is and will become as a result of their alliance. So once they establish all of the different secret organizations amongst each other, they're already probably established right now.
the
Uh,
Five Eyes is an intelligence alliance comprising of Australia, Canada, New Zealand, United Kingdom, and the United States.
exactly. So just like I said, there's going to be an establishment, but an equal and opposite one for BRICS, right? In that alliance. So even within that, we have NAFTA and all these different things. They're going to develop their own thing, right? They probably already have something like that between them. So again, the money wealth transfer is going to shift into these nations. We're going to see Africa as a continent develop very rapidly over the next 10 years. I'm very much looking forward to that. I'm very curious to see how much influence China and Russia have in that development, because by them creating a hard ball against France, they've now created a hard wall against the U.S. because the U.S. is forced to make a choice, basically, to either establish their own direct connection with the continent, or, which I mean, technically, you could argue that VC is already doing that by way of investing into African startups and stuff like that. So they'll always be involved. But from a government and international relations perspective, Michael, I'm gonna ask you: do you think that the U.S. is, from your perspective, is going to number one have a very big influence on African politics and culture moving forward? And do you think that they're going to have an influence on the economic status of a lot of these African nations and countries as we see them either join BRICS or don't join BRICS, and then come over to the U.S. and everybody else to help see that development? Because I feel like that would be also supercharged, so that way they could build kind of some type of resistance on the continent for democracy for everyone like.
It's very, very interesting. So, to respond blankly, yes, I do. How they'll do it will be much more nuanced than we've ever seen. And we're not talking, establish a coup, throw out a dictator, in which, all you have to do is look at a history book and see America's done that. I do think they will do it, as you mentioned, by product of entrepreneurship. We're seeing Kamala Harris meet specifically with Black entrepreneurs. We're seeing Joe Biden attempt to solve student loan debt. These are very targeted acts towards the Black and Brown community. Specifically knowing that a number of Nigerian and West African immigrants do come to America on visas specifically for school. So I think the nuanced way in which the United States will do this is by almost offering, they will never say the word Black. They will never say that Nigerians, Ghanaians, people from Benin, Togo, or, they'll never open the borders, publicly, but they're going to do make very strategic investments into laws that kind of deregulate the angel investing process to ensure that more American dollars get into the West African country. I do believe a lot of citizens of West African countries do not trust the United States. very clearly. That guy Donald Trump and his just focus on misinformation, which was helped by the state, the country of Russia, has put a lot of civilians within West Africa just untrustworthy when they see someone walk into a room and say that they want to do business. I mean, it's unfortunate that this still imposter syndrome exists where people will listen, they'll have the meeting instead of just outright knowing that you are not good for me or for my people. And so I'd love to share a very recent video that came out and have like a quick discussion about it. This is going to be a new frontier, as you mentioned, for West African countries and people like Akon, who, in 2010 said he was going to make Akon City, and who in 2015 said he was going to make his own coin. And everyone thought he was crazy. On his recent episode with EYL, he dropped a banger in saying that, Africa is a huge continent, but it hurts us by consistently looking, and this hurts us as in Nigerians and African people, as seeing each of our countries as these independent countries. They are independent, they have their own government, and that's a test to innovation. Imagine a place or an area as big as Texas, with its own federal government system, everything that you need to run and operate a country. And it's only been existent for 60 to 70 years. That's an example of Black excellence. But why is it if someone from Madagascar who has a unique patent on drilling for oil needs a visa and needs a stated reason in order to enter a country like Congo in order to do business or have conversations with people? Why is it that the travel system is so segmented and the overall intercollaboration between African countries is so segmented and so distant that even though you live, from the distance of DC to Charlotte is the distance from, again, just mention Nigeria because I know it well, to Congo or other countries. Why is it that you need to have a specific visa? But if you have your American passport, that blue book, you can enter and exit as much as you want to. So how can we, and I'm glad that ECOWAS, as we mentioned, a coalition of African countries focused on economic development, how can we ensure that travel, the ability to freely express ideas and not experience xenophobia, because that's a very real experience. How can we prevent that from happening for the next group of entrepreneurs that have ideas, from living in a climate so similar to 20 other countries that live beside them, but because they didn't apply for a visa or because the person who was supposed to get them into the country retired or is on vacation, they can't do business and contribute towards the overall economic value. And what happens as a result is these countries, as we've talked about, are able to come in, offer bad deals, and there's no form of solidarity within these different African countries. It's just every country for themselves. And so now it's 10 different countries taking terrible deals instead of them doing collective and community financing to overall build their entire region. So I think America's going to try and do that, but without, again, opening the border or making too much of it or making a big scene.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. The way that they've already done that before is through the World Bank because America funds the World Bank. I mean, granted, I don't remember whether or not when Trump was in office he took money away from us doing that and a lot of different things in the EU, not EU but the United Nations and I think it was like uh, the ecosystem, the climate deal and stuff like that, taking us out of that, the Paris climate deal.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, it's very interesting that you mentioned that you think that the U.S. will find its way somehow, some way, which I agree. To some extent, they will be involved. To what extent and how they'll try to monopolize or just manipulate these countries into poor deals of development. I don't think it's really in their best interest to do so because then they'll end up in a position where we have countries retaliating against us, like vassal countries trying to retaliate against the U.S. And at that point, if the U.S. gets to a place where it's the U.S. versus BRICS, let me tell you, I put up on my story the other day that to be in the top 1% of the UK, you have to make, I think it's only $103,000 a year, 103,000 pounds, or I guess is in their currency.
131, 140 maybe. Okay,
Well,
in dollars.
I think it's a little less than that now. I would say probably a little bit closer to 120 or 115 if I'm being real, with the way that the dollar's pairing. Um, yeah, but what I want to say is that knowing that information, right, to be in the top 1% over there, that's how much you need, and to be in the top 1% over here, it's a little bit than that. In our area, in the DMV, that number is closer to 400,000. I'm just be real. I'm gonna be real. And in Connecticut, just to put some things in perspective, that's closer to 1 million. So it's interesting, right? But then again, hear me out. The property value near Yale goes for anywhere between 100,000 to 150 to 300, 400K on average for a house or a townhouse in that area, or a condo rather, in the city. Now, granted, from my understanding, the city is pretty much safe and gentrified to the most, ability in New Haven. So I'm like, why are the property values this low? But Connecticut is supposed to be one of the best places to keep property value. So I'm gonna just leave it there. But anyways, don't the main thing is that at the end of the day, I agree. Africa will be in a different place as a continent. I wonder if China and Russia are putting African nations already in bad deals, or if they are helping them with their infrastructure. Because I don't consider it a bad deal if the infrastructure is established, created, like national systems, et cetera, and all they're asking for is just to have trade and commerce. Now, I recognize what that means from an influence perspective. However, for the GDP and all of that other things, right, that only tells me that we're going to develop this country more because we're putting money into this country for the development of all of the other things. Now, if they're putting money into specific industries for the export and the exploitation of these materials and goods, that's a whole different story. I'm not really rocking, but that's what the World Bank does anyways. So when I look at it, I'm like, that's already an example of what's out there. But to your point, I do see it coming from both perspectives of, all right, we got to do what we got to do in order to prevent like a one-up on us, for whatever reason, and we're not aware. So we'll see what comes of it. Anyway,
Praying for peace for the Niger community.
I pray all day. I hope that, whatever groups they send to protect whatever borders they need to protect are all good. They don't need to fight, nothing, because it's rightfully theirs. I'm with them on all of that. Protect your borders, do what you gotta do, bring it home, boys.
Sure, why y'all working?
All right, appreciate it. This has been a great episode. I do have to skedaddle, but Michael, let the people know what we got in store for them moving forward, and we'll be good to go.
Absolutely. So apologies for if y'all saw, there was a bit of a hiatus from posting. I promise it wasn't a hiatus. We were working hard on unloading up as much content, whether it was shorts or full length videos, to make sure that y'all can hear the best. We got some interviews coming, some exciting VCs. If you want to learn anything more about Black entrepreneurship as a whole, what it means to work and operate within the Midwest space, we have an artist as well that we're looking on unlocking in, who's been able to create some exciting books and projects. More content's coming, so as long as y'all stay tuned, subscribe, like this video.
Keep working.
Keep working.
Peace. Living in the dream.
Let's get it.